This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by IBM. Big data at the speed of business.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of straight talk radio. I want to extend a special welcome to listeners joining us on our national affiliate network, which extends across all 50 states, and also welcome members of our armed forces and their families who tune in over the internet. Thank you for your emails and cards and letters and for making the Costa Report part of your news week. In just a moment, acclaimed attorney and entrepreneur, Mr. Robert Shapiro will be joining the program to talk about an issue we frequently encounter on this program, and that is the difference between moral justice and legal justice. Listeners will recall Shapiro was part of O.J. Simpson's successful dream team, which, according to Shapiro, ended in the correct legal outcome. But how often does legal justice trump moral justice? How about the case which lawyers are now bringing against makers of opioid drugs who, by all accounts, provided the legally required warnings and dosage recommendations to guard against addiction? In addition to his successful business ventures and his legal career, Shapiro also happens to be the founder of the Brent Shapiro Foundation, which is dedicated to drug prevention. And we'll hear more about that foundation and the moral and legal issues surrounding today's opioid crisis in today's program. But before Mr. Shapiro joins us, as is my custom each week, let me tell you a little about his background. Robert Leslie Shapiro was born in Plainfield, New Jersey. He earned his undergraduate degree from UCLA and his law degree from Loyola Law School and was admitted to the California Bar in 1969. Shapiro is not only known for the celebrity clients he has represented, ranging from Darryl Strawberry, Jose Canseco, Johnny Carson, Christian Brando, to Linda Lovelace, but also for his pivotal role on O.J. Simpson's Dream Team. Owing to his extensive and successful track record, Shapiro was named by the National Law Journal as one of the 100 most influential lawyers in America. Today, Mr. Shapiro is a partner at Los Angeles law firm Glazer, Wheel, Fink, Jacobs, Howard, Afchin, and Shapiro, and is focused mainly on civil litigation. In addition to his legal career, Shapiro is the founder of the ever-popular LegalZoom and more recently Right Counsel, a service which matches folks facing legal issues with the best lawyers specializing in those issues. It's my pleasure to welcome to the program lawyer and entrepreneur Mr. Robert Shapiro. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Shapiro.
Rebecca, it's my pleasure to be with you, and I also want to extend my thanks to the men and women of the armed services who work day and night and risk their lives on a minute-by-minute basis to keep us safe.
Yes, we have a lot of folks in our military service who join us over the internet. Particularly, I want to say hello to those of you joining us over the internet from remote locations who are serving us far away from home. Now, I think most listeners are familiar with LegalZoom, but you recently started a new online service called Right Counsel. So I thought maybe a good place to start today's conversation is to ask you to tell us what prompted you to start Right Counsel.
Almost the same impetus that caused me and actually my partners. I'm the co-founder of LegalZoom along with three excellent lawyers, Brian Lee, Brian Liu, and Eddie Hartman. And one of the things that has always concerned me is the ability of people to get legal services. So that was the impetus for LegalZoom. The impetus for Right Counsel was the ability for people to get the best representation possible for serious accidents or injuries. And as we all know, lawyers are free now to advertise in almost any media venue they would like. And a lot of people are getting names of lawyers off the backs of buses, off billboards, from people that they don't know and don't know anything about. And our mission with Right Counsel was simple. We wanted to match people who had serious injuries or were victims of mass torts or toxic drugs to lawyers that myself and my fellow lawyers at Right Counsel thought were the best lawyers for that particular person and for that particular type of case.
Now, what kind of criteria do you use in establishing best?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question. The majority of the lawyers that we are recommending people to engage are lawyers that I personally know, are lawyers that I've seen in court, are lawyers who I know have gotten tremendous verdicts before juries and amazing settlements outside in mediation. So
you've been in this business since 1969, and at the level that you play at, it's a relatively small community. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say, Rebecca.
And so you would know if someone came to you and said, look, I've got this situation, you would know how to match them. So in a way, you're kind of formalizing what you do informally with Right Counsel. Is that fair?
That's a very, very fair way of putting it. It's not unusual for me to even get calls from my own partners at Glazer Weil to say, my wife was just injured by falling down an escalator, or my wife was in a parking lot visiting her doctor, and a car backed over and ran over her foot. 2 actual real cases. And I said, there are terrific lawyers that I know that are close in this area that I think would be a perfect match not only for the legal issue, but to fit personally with the personalities of the people. And one of those cases has been resolved, and the other is, I think, going to go to litigation.
What I like about what you've done with LegalZoom and also with Right Counsel is these were questions that were coming up repeatedly to you, and you were already aware that there was a market need for it. So you've sort of stepped in and made it easier for the layman to find the right attorney to represent them and also to get access to the right forms and the right processes. I wonder how the legal community itself has reacted to what you've done.
That's a very interesting question, Rebecca. So let's start with LegalZoom. The overwhelming majority of people in the country, and we're a national business, are very favorable towards LegalZoom. There are some people, and mainly it's in smaller states where there are individual lawyers who do almost every type of case, who find us to be competitive. And I think competition is good. If we're able to develop and to provide to our consumers legal documentation that is valid, that will stand up to any type of scrutiny at a reasonable and affordable cost, I think we're doing a great service to the community, and our success has shown that that's the case.
Right, but at one time this was all proprietary, right? These forms were the purview of lawyers, and so the minute you open it up and say, well, look, there's no magic, these forms are available, these processes are understandable, then certainly there are going to be attorneys who say, well, gosh, you've taken some of my business away. And I agree with you. I think that kind of competition really helps the person on the street.
That's correct, Rebecca. The other thing is we really don't use forms. Our system is interactive, where
yes.
People go on to LegalZoom.com. They see the documents that they need. Let's say something like a will or a durable power of attorney, a living will. And questions are asked, and we have specialists.
We have to take a scheduled intermission, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Costa Report. I'm here today with Scott Caraccioli of Caraccioli Cellars. How is Caraccioli able to grow so quickly in popularity and still maintain that special attention to detail from the field to the bottle? What's the secret?
There is no secret. It's just hard work. It's something that you got to put a lot of effort in, a lot of time in. You can't cut corners. Bubbles are inherently naked, so your flaws are exposed. And when that's the case, you have to be diligent on the front end and go the extra mile to make sure that you don't cut those corners and that you do things the right way. We're in a ideal location, and being able to harvest at optimal pick points, produce these grapes in the best way possible. You have great fruit, and you go through these different steps, and at the end, you end up with a unique product that showcases the fruit in a different way. You can order any of our products directly from us by visiting our website, caracciolicellars.com, or calling the tasting room directly, 831-622-7722.
When I say Italy, what comes to mind?
Venice.
Capri. Oh my gosh, Capri was marvelous.
The views, the cliffside views, or traveling to Sorrento.
Perello Tours.
Oh, Perello Tours, for sure.
Perello. Hi, I'm Steve Perillo of Perillo Tours. With over 70 years of tour experience to Italy, it's no wonder Perillo Tours is synonymous with travel to Italy.
I think of the culture.
And to walk up to certain areas and touch a wall and think, well, this wall's like 3,000 years old.
Being on a Perillo tour on our anniversary was better than anything I can remember ever on an anniversary.
I personally approve every itinerary to ensure a stress-free, once-in-a-lifetime vacation.
Salute! Call now for your free insider's guide to Perillo's Italy. Call in the next 30 minutes and qualify for a $100 gift card when you travel with us. Call 800-897-7176, 800-897-7176, 800-897-7176.
Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. I start laundry at 8. At 10, we go for a walk. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers for advice, tips, and support. Together, let's help each other better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
I am done with my mattress. That's right. I'm not spending another night on this old bag. My new mattress comes today, and this thing is out of here. Bye-bye, mattress.
Yep. Bye-bye, mattress. So says you and about 1,000 other people every day. And that's a lot of old mattresses with no place to go. There's the landfill, of course, where they just take up space. But what a waste. Because you could send it to a mattress recycler, where old mattresses get broken down into steel, foam, wood, and fiber that become new steel, carpet padding, home insulation, garden mulch, biomass fuel, locomotive oil filters, and all kinds of other great stuff. So bye-bye mattress is right. But don't toss it. Recycle it. It's easy. And it's free. To find a mattress recycler in your area, visit buybuymattress.com.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is acclaimed lawyer and entrepreneur and humanitarian, Mr. Robert Shapiro. And before the break, you were beginning to explain how LegalZoom is an interactive site. And I apologize we had to go to a hard break, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to complete that thought.
Well, no need to apologize. I mean, that's how these broadcasts get done.
I hate that because we'll be right in the middle of something that I am fascinated by, and then, the lights go on and they say, you got a hard break coming up. We're going to cut you off, and they certainly do, don't they?
Absolutely. So Rebecca, LegalZoom it was set up to make the average consumer able to go on a computer and answer questions the way a lawyer would ask questions in order to have a document prepared and completed. We have document review specialists in each and every type of document we do that go over those documents word for word to make sure that they are correct and will stand up to legal scrutiny. We've also expanded to having lawyers available should people need additional assistance in their documentation or in certain other areas that LegalZoom is involved in. Right Counsel, on the other hand, is a totally separate entity that was founded by myself and Brian Liu, one of our founders of LegalZoom, to put lawyers in touch, to put consumers who are victims, unfortunately, of serious accidents or bad drugs in touch with lawyers that we feel are the best. Many of these services that connect lawyers with people in accidents are lawyers who are paying for territories to get referrals. We don't do that at all. The lawyers that we use are lawyers that we know by reputation, are lawyers that we have total confidence in, and are lawyers that we would use should, God forbid, somebody near and dear to us be involved in a serious accident or suffer the effects of bad drugs or a toxic tort.
Well, now, I think you make an excellent point, which is the lawyer that spends the most money advertising isn't necessarily the best lawyer and may not necessarily be the best lawyer for your particular case. So let me ask you, what areas do you cover? I mean, do you cover the entire United States, or is this mostly the Southern California area? Where is Right Counsel available?
Well, right now, we've launched about 4 months ago, and we were concentrating on the areas in Southern California and throughout California. As the program expands, we have contacts with lawyers nationally, and we will be expanding on a state-by-state basis. Different states have different rules for lawyers making referrals to other lawyers or suggesting other lawyers. And so on a state-by-state basis, by the end of next year, we should be across the country.
Well, that'd be terrific. I think everyone listening today can hardly wait for it to come to their state. So we're very excited about talking about this particular service that's available in California right now and will be moving across the United States. Now, I mentioned, I'm going to switch gears here for just a moment. I mentioned earlier that you were a key member of OJ's defense dream team. And following that trial, you've made a point of clarifying the difference between moral justice and legal justice. And in the case of OJ, you feel that the verdict was an example of legal justice. Is that right?
That's correct. You know, I for the last 20 or so years, avoided speaking about the Simpson matter other than a couple interviews I gave after the verdict, the book I wrote called The Search for Justice, and recently, as a result of miniseries that were aired, one which was on ESPN, which I thought was exceedingly accurate, and one which was a tabloid version of someone's interpretation of what they think happened and was far from accurate. So I did one interview with Megyn Kelly to clarify some of those things. But the distinction I've made between moral justice and legal justice is people, especially in high-profile cases that are publicized, are getting their news in two ways. One, they're watching the case live. Or two, most likely they're hearing summaries from pundits on a daily basis and coming to conclusions. And that creates a real significant problem because unless you're sitting in the courtroom as a juror, focusing on one thing only, and that is the witness's testimony, it's nearly impossible for anybody to come to real conclusions as to what their decision would be if they were a juror in the case. You know, we're all entitled to our opinions, and the country at the time was divided. I think now people are looking at it in a way that most people find that the evidence was compelling in the criminal case. I've said one thing, Rebecca, and I'll repeat it again, and that is there were two trials for Mr. Simpson, a criminal trial and a civil trial. In the criminal trial, he was acquitted, found not guilty. In the civil case, he was found responsible. My comment is simple. Both verdicts were correct.
That's correct, and that is legal justice. But why is it that as a public, we want moral justice? We want the law to do more than just deliver legal justice.
It would be wonderful if we had a perfect system of justice. If we had the ability, scientifically, to know exactly what took place with anyone who was charged with a crime, to know all the facts in an unbiased point of view, then we would have a perfect system of justice. But we don't. We have a system of justice that is based sometimes on scientific evidence that may be viewed by one expert in one way and another expert in a different way. We have observations of people that may be challenged because those observations may be biased or may be incorrect. So if we had a perfect system of justice, I think we'd all be much better. But unfortunately, we don't.
So what we must strive for is what you call legal justice, which in the case of O.J. Simpson's both criminal and his civil trial were administered. There was definitely doubt established in his criminal trial, and that weighed heavily on the final verdict, which legally was accurate. Now, we have to take another scheduled intermission, but stay tuned. We'll be right back after these important messages from our sponsors. You're listening to the Costa Report. Like a lot of women I know, I am a big fan of a clean-shaven man, but not just any shave. It has to be a close, fresh shave. The kind of shave us ladies like to get near. In other words, a hairy shave. 3 million men have switched to Harry's because you can't get a better shave for the price. That's because Harry's razors are shipped from a factory that has been making precision blades for over 100 years direct to you with no middleman. But you don't have to take my word for it. Harry's is so sure you'll never use another razor again, they're offering a trial shave kit for free. The kit includes an ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision blades, shave gel, and a travel blade cover. To get your free trial shaving kit, just go to harrys.com/Costa. That's harrys.com/Costa. And find out why a Harry's razor makes all the difference.
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. I'm Paul George. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke F-A-S-T. Fast. Life is why. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Women now make up 37% of the workforce, changing their role forever.
Harvard Medical School has now opened its doors to new female applicants.
The first woman is now in space.
The majority of last year's doctorate degrees were earned by women.
We've come so far, but our news is changing for the worse. More women die from heart disease and stroke than men, even though it can be prevented. Make a change at GoRedForWomen.org today. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. So Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes, right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops, the rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Yeah, it's me, your heart. Listen to me. We've got to talk. High blood pressure is serious, and yours? Whoa. What happened to us? We used to be so much more active. But lately, you've been ignoring me. I know you think I'm just gonna keep ticking away forever, but you're wrong. You can do so much more to control your high blood pressure. Doing the minimum isn't doing enough. I'm under a lot of pressure and can quit whenever I want. Bet you didn't know that. But I like my job. Just treat me better. Check on me. Give me something green to nibble on every once in a while. And maybe we can do some exercise on occasion. Let's get to it. After all, we're in this together.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us today, my guest is Robert Shapiro, and we've been talking about the distinction that we have to make between legal justice and moral justice. I mentioned earlier you've represented many rich and famous clients. So my question to you is, what role does the wealth and the celebrity of an individual play in getting legal justice in America? What's been your experience?
You know, that's a very interesting question, and the common misconception is that people that have celebrity, people that are high profile, get a better shake and are treated better in the system, and that may have been true at one point in time. But in today's world, with the internet, with communications that are instantaneous, I think celebrity is a big drawback for people. First, the media is all over cases involving celebrities. Generally, you find that the media's view is that if somebody is indicted, somebody is charged, and somebody hires a lawyer, they must be guilty. And it makes it much more challenging and much more difficult. The other thing that the public is not aware of is when people in public life that are either people with celebrity status or people who are financially well off, the resources that prosecutors mount against those people are much greater than the average case. So if you take a case where somebody has been charged with a crime, and whether it's a serious crime or maybe just a misdemeanor, and the public doesn't know about it, these cases become routine, and they go through the courthouse, and they get resolved, most of them 90% or more without a trial. But the celebrity cases, the people in public light or in public life are highly scrutinized, and so much more of a resource allocation is developed and allocated by the prosecutors to show the public that we're not going to treat these people any differently. In truth, in fact, they are treated much more differently and to a much higher standard.
You know, I had never thought about that before. This is the first time that it's occurred to me that in high-profile cases, lawyers' reputations are on the line. So, of course, the prosecution is going to mount the best possible defense and really resource the trial much more than, say, a low-profile case.
There's just no question about it. I mean, I'll go back as long ago as when I represented F. Lee Bailey shortly after the Patty Hearst case when he was arrested on suspicion of drunk driving. And in most drunk driving cases, there's two witnesses. There's the investigating and arresting officer who was at the scene and an expert who tells you what the significance is if somebody took a test or didn't take a test. And in his case, they called 40 witnesses over a period of almost 2 weeks. So, I've seen case after case of the high-profile nature where the enormous resources available to the state or the federal government are put against individuals that don't happen in the day-to-day cases.
So those are much tougher cases. They're much more complicated. I'll tell you what drives me nuts is when these high-profile cases happen, there's so many television programs where you've got pundits interviewing other pundits, and none of them have a legal background. This must drive you nuts.
Well, it doesn't drive me nuts. It just keeps me off television because it's something I choose not to participate in because I think it creates a circus atmosphere and people start yelling and talking over one another and nobody comes out looking well.
That's right. That's right. Well, we've been talking about legal justice and we've been talking about moral justice. What about social justice? Is that something we should be looking to the law for?
I think so. I think that's one of the most compelling issues facing the country right now. And that the law cannot be there to solve each and every problem, but I think it can set standards that are necessary for social justice.
Now, in addition to your legal practice, I mentioned that you've been very active in drug abuse prevention and treatment through your foundation. So you're a good person to ask about the current opioid epidemic. From your perspective, is this shaping up to be a tobacco industry-like lawsuit?
I think so, and long overdue. I've been talking about this for the last decade. Let me go back in history. In 2005, our son, Brent Shapiro, was about to graduate from USC on the dean's list. But Brent had been a drug addict and an alcoholic, and we had discovered it at about the age of 18 or 19, which was probably way too late because the symptoms were there before. He'd been sober for 18 months. He went to a party and broke his sobriety, which is not an uncommon thing where people who are suffering from drug disease or alcoholism relapse is just something that happens. We're dealing with a disease that is treatable but not curable, and that is recurring. And it happened to him. He took a half of ecstasy and 2 Jägermeister shots to get it down and got violently ill. And no one called the paramedics. And as a result, he aspirated in his sleep. And when the next morning when he was turning blue and 9/11 was finally called, he was in a coma and never recovered. So we started a foundation for drug prevention. And that is the most important thing that I do today. So when we're talking about opioids, it has become such a massive problem, but nobody had been paying attention to it. The public was misinformed. up until last year, Vicodin was classified as a much safer drug, a Schedule III drug, that a doctor could call in over the phone versus OxyContin or any of the other hydrocodones, which are Schedule II. And the only difference, realistically, is Vicodin was half the strength of OxyContin. 2 Vicodin would be 1 OxyContin. And so people were given a false sense of health security by saying, well, it's only Vicodin, and it's something that people got accustomed to taking because they had pain.
And also because it was prescribed by their doctors, and people trust their doctors.
And I've often said in medical school, they must only have one number they teach doctors, and that's 30. Because every time you get a prescription, you get one for 30 pills. And that's what doctors were doing with Vicodin. Yeah. And it was creating an atmosphere of addiction that people were unaware of. And
it did, but one thing I just came from speaking to the National Association of Spinal Surgeons on this exact topic on opioid addiction and what can be done about it. And I have to say that I'm even empathetic for the doctors, because most of those doctors in the room read the same studies that I did, which said that there was a less than 1% opportunity for addiction to much of these opioids. So, they were steered in the wrong direction as well. We've got to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll continue to talk about this opioid addiction and what may be in store next from a legal perspective. Stay with us. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Are you struggling with addiction or alcohol problems? If you're depressed, drinking, and using drugs, you may need help. And the Affordable Care Act guarantees coverage of substance abuse.
I knew I could get myself out of this. I just needed some hope and some help.
I took the first step to recovery when I made the call.
Call the Addiction Hope and Helpline now for a free assessment with someone who cares. Call 800-962-6969. 800-962-6969.
I feel like I'm losing control. I'm afraid I'll lose my job or even my family.
Call now for hope and help with proven, gentle recovery programs.
I never thought that I could be somebody who didn't drink and use drugs.
I'm in recovery, getting the help I need.
Call the Addiction Hope and Helpline now for a free assessment with someone who cares. Call 800-962-6969. 800-962-6969. 800-962-6969.
Here's something big banks don't want you to know about your IRA or 401k. What if you could store your IRA or 401k where you could see, touch, and hold it in person in the form of physical gold and silver coins? I know you can't do that with your stock portfolio. With Augusta Gold and Silver IRA, you can transfer retirement savings into physical coins and store them where you can actually see them, where you can get your gold faster in any disaster. Free shipping, zero management fees, and Augusta pays all upfront costs. Getting started, absolutely free. Rated A+ with the Better Business Bureau at a 98% 5-star satisfaction rating with TrustLink.org, so you can trust Augusta. Call toll-free 855-777-5662 now for your free guide to Augusta Gold IRA. Call toll-free 855-777-5662. That's 855-777-5662. Call Augusta today. 855-777-5662.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to mooch off your friends.
You gonna finish that grape?
You mean the one in my mouth?
You don't need to stop buying the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel? Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman. You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15.
X is the best I can do.
All right, deal. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Hey, America. We need to have a little talk. I don't know if you've noticed, but we got a lot of food in this country. A lot of peaches, a lot of corn, a lot of apples, a lot of everything. We've got so much food that we can't even eat it all. So if we got all this extra food, how are 17 million kids in America struggling with hunger? I just don't get it. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks gathers surplus food and gets it to the hungry kids who need it. They can get you food even if you live in Idaho or Alaska or somewhere crazy like that. This isn't complicated. We got extra food and we've got hungry kids. Feeding America's done the math. Now it's your turn. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. I know you got internet on your phone, so what are you waiting for? We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us, we have been speaking today with lawyer and entrepreneur and humanitarian Robert Shapiro, and we've been discussing the legal issues surrounding the current opioid epidemic. And before the break, I asked you whether this was shaping up to be a tobacco industry type of lawsuit.
I think it is. It has all the earmarks of it, going back to the way that big pharmaceutical companies misled the public, did not give out proper warnings, misled doctors, and created an atmosphere where over 90% of all pain medication is consumed by Americans. So we must have more pain than the rest of the world combined, which is obviously not the case.
Yeah, so where do you think this winds up? Does this wind up as a giant class action suit of those addicted against the pharma companies?
You know, I really can't predict, Rebecca, where this ends up. My hope is this. My hope is that it ends up in a way that people now and doctors become much more knowledgeable about the dangers of these highly addictive types of opiates, that patients are not prescribed these simply for the asking, that these medications were designed for people with stage 4 cancer or tremendous pains, not for people with toothaches or minor backaches, which has become the way people get them, that doctors are regulated and that doctors are identified who are overprescribing these medications, that pharmacies are identified that are overfilling these medications, that see people come back with prescriptions from multiple doctors. So I think safeguards are the more important way to deal with this. I think the legal system will certainly get involved in this, and that the real issue is how are we going to prevent our next generation of young people from this epidemic of addiction that is sweeping the nation and that is causing us the greatest social problem I think we've had in the history of this country.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I do have something I do want to pass on to you, and that is there is a company called Fuzzy Logics that has developed they're a predictive analytics company, and that's my lane, which is technology. And they have developed a quick questionnaire that can be taken by a patient that also looks at their medical records and looks at certain adaptive behaviors that they have that are markers for an addict. And they can predict with 80 to 85% accuracy whether a patient is predisposed to become an addict. And I think that ought to be mandatory before they issue those legal prescriptions. What do you think?
I agree with you. And I think additionally, the research from UCLA is that 50% of this disease and it is a disease. Addiction is now recognized, certainly as a disorder, but in my view, a disease, that 50% of addiction is genetic. So
that's correct.
People, so if you're giving out highly addictive substances to people, you're playing Russian roulette with their lives, and this is
and
not
we have
something
genetic testing that we can test people. And you know, if I were walking into a doctor's office and they said, look, would you like to be tested to see if you're predisposed to become an addict? I'd say, heck yes. You know, sign me up for the test.
Absolutely. And,
it's just not being offered.
Which gets us to another point. And one of the things I'd like to mention and bring up to you, Rebecca, is what we're doing with the Brent Shapiro Foundation for Drug Prevention. Our programs start with kids from 11 to 17 in association with the Boys and Girls Club of America. And it's a very simple program. If our kids, along with their parents, agree to let us test them randomly for drugs and alcohol, they get rewarded. And as they continue through the program, if they graduate as a sober high school student, they're eligible for a college scholarship, which we have provided to kids now for the last 12 years since this program has started. And right now we have 4,000 kids in 6 clubs, 4 in underserved areas in Los Angeles, 1 in Malibu, and our biggest club in the Bronx, New York. And we have not had one child in our club fail a test in the last 3.5 years.
That is an amazing statistic. And as you point out, addiction is a devil of a problem to try to solve on the back end. If there is anything at all we can do on the front end to prevent legal prescriptions from getting people going down that road, or warning kids that they're predisposed in some way because they've had addiction history in their family, or they're genetically predisposed in some way. If there's any way we could head that off, we need to do that.
Well, that's what the Brent Shapiro Foundation is dedicated to doing. Right now, we have the Los Angeles Dodgers, who unfortunately didn't win the World Series, sponsoring.
Oh, they'll get another chance.
They will for sure, but they've stepped up to the plate and are sponsoring our biggest club in East Los Angeles, in Boyle Heights, and the New York Football Giants are sponsoring our biggest club in New York. And our mission is to get every sports franchise in America to sponsor one of our clubs with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America in every city in America, and to have our next generation be well aware of the dangers of addiction. And the absolute way to prevent addiction is not to start.
Hear, hear. And based on your track record, I would say that success is imminent, and we look forward to having you come back and tell us more about the Brent Shapiro Foundation. We are just about out of time, but before we say goodbye, let me congratulate you on LegalZoom and Right Counsel, and also your work with the foundation. And thank you for making time to speak with us today. Thank you, Mr. Shapiro.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's been a pleasure to be on your great program. I'm a big fan, and thank you for inviting me.
Now, as you heard, the law is extremely complex, and Mr. Shapiro has developed 2 tools which make it easier for the person on the street to navigate that complex maze. So do visit LegalZoom or Right Counsel when you need the help. And speaking of streamlining and making things easier, Harry's Razors had the same idea as Mr. Shapiro. They wanted to make life a little easier, too. The founders of Harry's knew that there had to be a less expensive way to get a premium razor and a premium shave. So they scoured the earth to find, and they bought, a German factory with over 100 years of blade-making experience. And then they cut out the middleman. They made the decision to go direct to you. And that decision has led to the finest razor in the industry at the lowest possible price. And if you don't think that makes a difference when you shave with a Harry's razor, then you ask any one of the 3 million men who have switched to Harry's. More and more are switching every single day. And there really are some things that I can't tell you about. You have to experience them for yourself because, it doesn't matter what I say on the radio. If you get the razor, you try it, and you like it, then what I've said made sense. And if you don't try it, then I could talk to you all day long and it won't make any difference. So I've asked Harry's to remove all the stops, and they are offering listeners of the Costa Report a free trial. All you do is go to harrys.com/Costa, my last name, Costa, to get your free Harry's razor kit, which includes an ergonomically designed razor handle, 5 precision blades, shaving gel, and a travel blade cover. And all you pay for is shipping. I give you my word that once you try a Harry's razor, you're not going to want to use anything else. So jump on your mobile phone or your tablet or go to harrys.com/Costa to get your free trial razor, blades, gel, and blade cover. And that just about wraps up our first hour. My guest next week is former White House Chief of Staff for President Clinton, Thomas Mack McLarty, who was instrumental in creating a deficit reduction plan that not only balanced the federal budget, but produced one of the largest surpluses in recent history. Don't miss the one and only Mack McLarty next week, right here on the only news program that puts policy ahead of politics. Now stay tuned for a second hour of the Costa Report. Listen up, because I want to let you in on a little secret. You don't have to be a psychic to know which business and political experts are going to be on the Costa Report next month. All you have to do is sign up for our free monthly newsletter at RebeccaCosta.com. It takes less than a minute, and when you do, you'll receive our guest schedule along with special announcements and free offers the first of every month. So go to RebeccaCosta.com and sign up today.
Hi, I'm Joan London with A Place for Mom. Over the years, we've helped thousands of families find senior care, and today's senior living communities have never been better, with amazing amenities like movie theaters, exercise rooms, and swimming pools, even pet care services. And nobody understands your options like the advisors at A Place for Mom. Best of all, it's a free service.
To get our free ebook on financing senior care, as well as a free referral for senior living communities in your area, call 1-800-806-8572.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions, brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. I improved my credit score.
You're kidding, right?
No.
How are we supposed to be the bad boys of electro-synth pop if you're out there being responsible? The band is about to be discovered. This is our year.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while now.
You think anyone in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was worried about their credit score?
I never really thought that.
Of course they weren't. Rock stars aren't supposed to think about that kind of stuff. We're supposed to think about how many guitars we've smashed, write aggressively sensitive power ballads, start questionable fashion trends, tragically break up and blame creative differences.
All right, I thought maybe it was time to take control of my finances, Start using a budget, get out of debt, set some goals.
A budget? Debt? Set some goals? Listen, I knew that we'd have our creative differences, but I was hoping they'd involve a little more scandal.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
The Costa Report is now heard in all 50 states on fine radio stations, including this one.